The third rule in the red binder says don't check the basement feed after midnight. I don't trust rules written in Sharpie by a shaking hand. I clicked at 12:03 and I wish I could tell you nothing happened. I took the weekend overnight shift at the Coldwater Exchange, a converted mill beside the tracks. They pay me to watch a wall of cameras, swipe my fob on empty floors, and call Ken if anything leaks. The security room is a closet with a rack of fans, lemon cleaner in the air, and one bolted steel door. The lights are those buzzing bars that flicker when the heat kicks on. There's a landline labeled security, a peephole that fisheyes green, and the red binder packed with plastic sleeves. Ken slid the binder to me and tapped the boxed items. Do not prop exterior doors. No one rides the elevator alone after 1. And then the Sharpie rule. Do not open the basement camera feed after midnight. If it is open, do not answer the phone. If it rings, close the feed first, then answer. I asked why. Ken rubbed his temple and said the system updates at night and lags spook the new guys. Trust me, he said, which is not an answer when you're the only breath in a building. My second night, I ran my fob rounds, stared at my reflection in black windows, brewed coffee that tasted like pennies. At 11:58, I was back on the stool with 12 silent screens and a clock I could suddenly hear. The NVR showed 12 tiles, timestamps in military time, and a red dot beside B2 stare for motion. Boilers click, shadows move, so the dot still sat there like a dare. I scrolled to the basement group. The preview flashed greenish concrete, 2 mops, and a low door marked exit. My cursor shook because my hand did. At 12:03 exactly, I double-clicked Basement Hall West. The feed filled the screen, the infrared flattening the hall until it looked like winter air. Condensation tapped from a pipe into a bucket, a slow tick I felt in my jaw. Old brick puckered under paint, hairline cracks drew little maps, and the beam sat low enough to slice a tall hat. 2 yellow mops leaned against a caged outlet, heads dark with old water. Far off, the stair B sign swung. Nothing moved. The stamp read 3 minutes and 12 seconds, then 3 minutes and 57 seconds, then 3 minutes and 13 seconds again, like it skipped and changed its mind. I sipped cooling coffee and told myself eyes do strange things when you stare at gray too long. Something small skittered near the bucket and slid under the low door. I was not afraid of bugs. I was afraid of why my reflection wasn't where it should be. I tapped the audio icon even though basement cams have no mics. The icon flashed muted then not then muted again, like someone else clicked faster than me. The NVR chimed 2 bright notes and flashed remote connection, user admin 2. I listened and heard our rack hum and the dry rattle in the vent, and under that a braided hush. Probably the boiler, I told myself. The tape on the floor seemed to face left and then right without moving. The mops leaned a shade closer. The exit light tried for a rhythm and failed. The camera hunted exposure. Noise snow thickened and thinned like breath fogging glass. I hovered to close the feed and log the event. The landline rang. Nobody calls at night except drivers locked out or Ken. The caller ID read Basement Hall West. My mouth went dry like when I almost stepped into a moving train. The binder rule replayed in my head with the ugly box around it. I closed the feed. The tiles came back. The red dot glowed beside B2 stare like a cigarette. Security, I said, like training. I heard my voice again on a delay, then a breath. Don't open it. Close it, close it, close it. And the line clicked like a hand on a cradle. The call log said unknown. The little panel still said Basement Hall West like a dare. Maintenance can access the NVR, and there are phones in the closets, but no badges pinged since 1942. I opened the basement feed again. Same hall, same bucket ticking at the surface. The stamp read 8 minutes and 1 second, then 00:07:61, which is not a time. The tape on the caged outlet sagged like a broken eyelet. The mops leaned a hair closer. The swinging sign remembered to be still. Cut it out, I said, to the camera, the room, and my own head. The skin between my shoulder blades tightened, the specific feeling of eyes on your back. The top row monitors were black. In them I could see the faint ghost of my room like a double exposure. On the basement feed, I could not see my room at all. Even at the edges, it swallowed everything. I toggled to east. From there I could see west's dome camera, a dull plastic bubble with a white scuff. In west, the scuff was gone. I wrote "You are bored" on a sticky and pressed it to the bezel, the petty control steadying my hands. Someone knocked, 3 polite taps on the steel door. The peephole fisheyes green. I saw the concrete hall, and an exit sign's pale rectangle, and nobody. The phone rang again. The ID said unknown. I let it ring twice and slid the cursor to close the feed. The X didn't respond. The NVR chimed once. Text ghosted local user, cam04, focus override. Security, I said into the air. The line picked up by itself, cloth rasping on plastic. Then my own voice, too bright, a shade higher, said stop watching, and said my name the way my mother does. I slammed the cradle. The noise sounded like someone losing his temper in an empty room. In the bucket's reflection, a white shirt and a wrong bezel waited. I didn't turn at all. My chair let out a slow rubber squeal, tiny and guilty, like it wanted me to look. I stared at the white shirt in the bucket because I was wearing gray. The bezel around the reflection screen was thick and shiny, not chipped matte like mine. The cursor in that version of my room floated over the same X and failed to grab it. I said my own name quietly, just to place it in the air. The phone rang again. Basement Hall West, the display offered, as if it had a mouth. I pulled the cord from the wall to kill the line, then realized I had broken the only thing that could call out. Ken's number was on a sticker under the phone cradle. I took a photo of it with my own phone, habit, because numbers evaporate in panic. There was no service in the room, only a bar that pretended to be helpful and didn't go anywhere. So I did the thing the rule was trying to prevent. I stood up without closing the feed. The steel door handle was colder than the room and a little oily, like someone had touched it with glove grease. I cracked it and listened. The hall was its usual sigh, the building breathing through its seams, a long cloth hush punctured by the buzz of a dying light down by the elevator. 3 taps came again, but behind me this time, inside the room I had just left. I closed the door and set my shoulder into it like I was hiding from weather. The monitor wall hummed on the other side, relentless, polite. I walked the corridor to stair B, because if I didn't check, I would sit and invent worse things. The badge reader blinked green when I passed, an encouraging little wink that made me hate it. The stairs smelled like metal coins and old mop water. I counted them because of a sentence in the binder I hadn't noticed before, a note jammed into a sleeve above the basement rules. If you go down, count. 13 to the first landing, 14 to the next. On 16, my foot met concrete 2 inches sooner than my eyes expected, and my knee told me I had believed something the building didn't. I stopped, put my hand on the rail, and backed up until the number of steps felt like the number of steps. The door marked B2 had a dent I had never noticed, a tidy inward moon like someone had pressed a forehead against it and decided not to go through. I went through. The basement air had that sweet cold you get in a walk-in, chemical and clean and not for breathing. Pipes ticked like a metronome a teacher taps under anger. I turned left toward the camera dome I had seen from east. The white scuff was there again, which meant the feed had been lying or showing me something from a day when the scuff didn't exist yet. The bucket stood under a slow drip, perfectly placed, the surface still enough to hold the reflection of a shirt that wasn't mine. No one else was there. That was almost worse. I walked to the low exit door and pressed 2 fingers to its push bar. It hummed with the building's own current. A beige wall phone hung near the camera cage, the kind with a curly cord and a handset that knows too many secrets. Its line light glowed dead green. I picked it up, more to prove a point than to use it. In my ear was the room I had left, the fan rack hum, and a thin version of me breathing wrong. Security, I said, out of habit, and the habit echoed back with a half-second delay. Don't open it, I said, which is exactly what I had heard earlier, and the word I landed on was my name, right the way my mother says it when she is worried and hides it in a smile. It felt like stepping into my own footprint and realizing someone else had a bigger shoe. I said close it 3 times because that is what you do with doors and stories and sometimes hearts. You name the action and hope it becomes true. Then I hung up and stood very still so the pipes could count me. Something small moved under the exit door, a dark thread, then withdrew as if it had changed its mind about the room. I took 3 steps back because 3 had become the building's language. Behind me, the mop handle sighed against the caged outlet, a tender little settle. The bucket ticked once, as if water had decided to be heavy for a moment. I walked back to the stairs and counted up, and there were 14 where 13 had been, and then 13 again where 14 should have been. At the landing, I put my forehead to the cool paint where that tidy moon had been pressed and pressed my own, and it fit too well. Back in the corridor, the buzzing light by the elevator had finally died. In the dark, there was not negative but thick, like a curtain that hadn't been steamed. I reached the security door and listened again before I went in. No taps. Inside, the monitors were still where I had left them, except for the bottom left, which now held my face at a shallow angle, the way a mirror does when you don't want to see your whole self. It was the dome camera's reflection of the bucket's reflection of me, 3 layers deep, and you couldn't close any of them without touching the others. The NVR chimed again and put up a box that read local user, cam04, focus override, but the cursor kept missing the button like it believed the X was a superstition. The phone began ringing from the basement, with my voice.